Spokesman of the Israel Defense Forces says Hamas won a huge PR victory after Monday's violence at the Israel-Gaza fence. Today, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus said, quote, Hamas wanted the casualties. Hamas wanted people to die. Hamas wanted the pictures of the wounded and the overflowing hospitals, unquote. The lieutenant colonel also said he believes IDF soldiers did their job with discipline and professionalism. Avner Gvaryahu used to be an IDF soldier. Now he serves as the executive director of Breaking the Silence. It's a group of Israeli veterans who speak openly and critically about their experience within IDF. We reached Mr. Gvaryahu in Tel Aviv.
Mr. Gvaryahu, what were you thinking as you watched what unfolded on Monday at the Israel-Gaza fence?
I was shameful for what my country was doing, and as a former paratrooper, as a sergeant of a sniper's team, I was thinking that we must have better ways to disperse demonstrations like the ones we saw on Monday.
I want to ask you a bit more about that, but first of all, can you describe the situation? What is the area that was being protected by the Israeli Defense Forces on Monday?
So I didn't serve as a soldier on the Gaza border or in the Strip itself, but from what I know, there is not a wall there, but a fence, and there in some places double or triple fences, and inside the Strip itself, there's actually a 100 to 300 meter buffer zone that the military declared. And that is an area that we know from previous testimonies that when Palestinians entered, they are risking their lives. And basically, a lot of the protests were around that area, maybe a little bit deeper into the Strip.
This is what's called the no-entry zone, and Palestinians, they had leaflets dropped to tell people, to warn them not to come near the fence, and if they did, that there would be consequences. Do you know how close that they would be considered to be dangerous for them to get to that fence?
Well, I think that's one of the things that's unclear. That's one of the key issues, that it's a one-sided decision. But I would take that a step further. It doesn't compute for me the fact that someone steps into a specific area inside the Strip, deems him a legitimate target. The only reason to shoot someone and to maim him or take his life is if that shooting could save someone else's life. If that's not the equation, then we have a problem. If their only felony was walking into a zone that Israel one-sidedly declared they cannot walk into, that is not something that I see as legitimate or moral, or even something that abides with military regulations as we know them.
But I want to put to you what we learned on Tuesday's program from Michael Oren, who's a deputy minister to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said that what they were dealing with was an operation that was organized by Hamas. And Hamas is regarded by your country and by mine to be a terrorist organization that has said that it's dedicated to the destruction of Israel, and that they believed that this was these 40 or 50,000 people that were there were organized by Hamas, and that there were Hamas operatives within those ranks who were trying to breach the fence and to get into Israel where they might hurt and harm people. So what we heard from Mr. Oren is that they had to protect that fence, and they had to shoot people to do that. What do you say to him?
It's just absurd to me that an Israeli official, regardless of who he is and his position, his only response is, they're at fault for us killing them. The situation in the Strip is a direct outcome of the lack of any action on the Israeli government, on either front, in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip. But, I have no pleasant things to say about Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and Israel has the right to defend itself. But if some of the people that were killed were Hamas members, that is not the relevant question. The relevant question is, were the people killed posing a direct threat to the soldiers, or to Israeli citizens.
We heard from Mr. Oren and from others that Hamas units that were within those large numbers were attempting to plant explosives on the fence. They had grenades, they said. They had, some of them had firearms.
But there are different tools that you could use that don't amount to lethal weapons. We knew this was coming weeks ago. I don't buy that the best thing we could do happened on Monday, because the outcome is horrific.
But we heard a senior Hamas official interviewed this week on Palestinian TV said that the majority of those who were killed, 50 of them, he said, were members of Hamas.
I would be very surprised to learn that the snipers sat on the fence with pictures of specific Hamas operatives. And there's, attempts by Hamas to show that most of their casualties are theirs, and there's the other side of that coin is also Israel saying most of them are Hamas members. But at the end of the day, the only test that is relevant in this discussion is, did they pose a direct threat to someone's life?
Just finally, you are part of this, you're executive director of Breaking the Silence, and that's an organization that encourages IDF soldiers to come and tell what they have gone through private testimony. You've put an ad out asking for soldiers who are there on Monday to do that. Have you had any response to your ad?
So I will choose not to answer that at this point. I would say this. It is very clear to me that soldiers that shot people who were unarmed are going to remember that. And that is something that's going to stay with them. And I hope that there'll be enough soldiers that will come out in order to say that, this should end. And obviously, these high prices paid by the Palestinians and by the Israelis are something that we hope will end.
Mr. Gvaryahu, I appreciate speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Avner